Welcome back to the Nittany and Lock Haven. Today I'm going to be explaining to you how to carve rock by hand using a couple simple methods.
The rock that I've chosen to model is called shale. It's a sedimentary rock that's common in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York State. Marcellus shale particularly contains black shale, limestone, and iron.
The tools I'm going to be using is a X-Acto knife with a chisel tip blade on it. I have a wire brush. This is actually not metal, it's made out of like a PVC plastic. And then I have a simple dollar paintbrush. Okay, so the medium I'm going to be using is a sheetrock brand lightweight joint compound or spackle. I know a lot of guys like to use a different range of things: plaster of Paris, hydrocal. I use the spackle. It's real cheap. A bag of it's like $4 or $5. You get 15 pounds of it in a bag. And the nice thing about this is it takes a long time to set up, but it's ready to carve within about 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So what you want to do is, get the amount of spackle you want to use, and then add your water and mix it to the consistency of like a pancake batter. Real sticky, but not too hard, not too runny. If it's runny, add more spackle. If it's too hard, add some more water. Until you get it to about this. This is about what I like. Once you have your compound mixed up, go ahead and throw it on vertical faces. You want to lay it on a little thick. You don't want to go too thin with it. You're not trying to smooth it out. You want to lay it on thick so that you can carve and you're not breaking pieces of spackle away every time you're chipping at it, because you do tend to use a little bit of force here when you start carving. It's not too much force, but just enough that you don't want to be chasing cracked pieces of spackle all day and coming back and filling in holes and stuff later. So you want to put it in a little bit thicker than one thing to keep in mind is to be conscious of air pockets. Make sure that there's no large air pockets, because once you start carving, if you hit an air pocket, it's going to crack and you'll lose a lot of the medium, and you're going to have to come back and fill it later. Okay, so we're going to let this set about 15 minutes to 30 minutes, somewhere in there. You'll feel it. The texture in your hand, it's not going to be squishy anymore. It's going to start to have a harder feel, but it will still feel wet. So we're going to let some time go by here. Okay, now that everything's starting to harden up a little bit, I'm going to take my wire brush and just give it a nice gentle scraping. This will put all those little grooves that shale tends to have. Okay, now we're going to start carving. Go in at an angle and try to keep everything the same grain. Just like a tree, rocks tend to have a grain to them, especially sedimentary rock. So right now I'm just chipping away at an angle to create where rock might have frozen between the layers and split away after the ice thawed. The expansion of the ice caused it to crack and fall away. I'm just doing this randomly. I mean, I don't really have a reason or rhyme to it. Let's give it a little light taps with the longest part of the blade. Don't go in at too much of an angle, and this will give you your lines, your grains. one thing that's important is to really tap away at it. Give yourself a lot of texture and try to keep those micro details that you're creating by tapping at it. You'll get some areas where it looks like the rocks are splitting and there's some rock that's hanging out higher. And they start to go in an angle towards the top to kind of suggest that the rock layer is starting to bow outwards. And this is just, again, something I picked up as I was working on it that I thought looked good, so I stuck with it. And once you start to get some flaking going on, just take your brush and give it a nice little clear the area for yourself so you can see what you're up to here. And then, the one thing I try to do is just, because of this type of rock being sedimentary rock, just try to keep everything going in the same direction. So keep the horizontal lines. Try not to do too much vertical because it's really going to make things look a little strange. Usually with sedimentary rock, it's caused by years and years of layers of sediment that settles, for water and from waterways, rivers, oceans, a long, long time ago. Let's see if you can see this is I let this dry about 30 minutes. And you can see how easy it is to carve right now. It's hard to the touch, but it still has a softness to it so that you can work with it. The other thing I'd like to suggest too is if you're using the method I use for terrain, which is plaster cloth over a foam ribbing with newspaper balls in it, which is kind of a common way to do it. One thing that I do suggest is sealing the plaster, and how you can do that is looks like I'm working off screen here, sorry about that. One way you can do that is by taking Elmer's glue and doing a 50-50 Elmer's glue water mix in a spritz bottle and spritzing your mountains down with it, and that'll seal it so that when you go back to put your spackle on it, the mountains won't get all limp or soft, so that when you're tapping away, you're not pushing the plaster around underneath your rock formation that you're working on. And that'll help also keep your rock formations from cracking. When you stain this or paint it, all your dark colors are going to collect in there, so you're going to see all those little details.